Thank you, everybody. I want to say thank you to Brandon because I just want to get it straight. An artist on a stage performing in a venue full of thousands of people is out-of-home media. And I think that just proves the point that out-of-home is human. It's part of our daily lives. Visual presences mean things. Being there in person means something. Being present in the moment means something. Just like we're here in the moment on a Saturday morning, you know, it's interesting. Out of all the conferences I go to, I think Media Post is one of the few that actually says, let's do it Saturday after everybody went out to party. But that means something too. It says that what we're doing is important. Our business is important. We take it seriously. We want to get it right. And not just for us, not just for your careers, not just to be able to say you know how to do out of home well, but more importantly for the public. We owe it to them. We occupy their space without invitation. And we owe it to them to reward them for their attention, to get our campaign right, to make it matter when they stop what they're doing. Because think about it, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, oh goody, I'm gonna go look at some out-of-home media. But when they run across it, when it intercepts their life in a way that adds value and stops them, when it creates a theater of the streets, we matter and it matters. And part of that is because out-of-home media it's real media for real people, right? It's visceral, it's proof of life. Think about yourself as a brand or the brands you represent. When you make a statement in the public space, it's a statement of confidence. There's a vulnerability to that. There's nowhere to hide. You're standing tall and saying, this is what we believe in, this is what we have to say, this is our promise to our public, and we're not backing off. And that means something, and especially, you know, Thursday morning, which seems so long ago. Albert talked about many things. I feel like brethren with Albert when it comes to some of our points of view of out-of-home media. But one thing he brought up was this notion of deep doubt, which our country's heading into. Certainly it's in our political discourse, but it's everywhere. It's in social media. And all of us as humans are already working on that. I don't know about you, but I find myself trying to figure out how I can get news. Like we all have our strategy. I listen to PBS, even though I know which way they lean, at least they're not yelling. And I think some of it might be a little bit true. But if I listen to BBC and PBS and some other things, and then the opinion propaganda machines, and I kind of put them all together, I think I might have found what the truth is. And the public's facing that, not only with political discourse, but with everything out there. I have friends who I call them graduates of TikTok because they believe everything they see. And they believe it fiercely. But I think everyone's on to the game that information we get for the most part might not be true. So think about what that means. That's overwhelming for people, and I think they'll begin to shut down. But what that means for out of home is that we may end up being that symbol of truth because I've seen it, because it's in front of me. And the example I'm going to speak to here is a hyper-local example that's gone national. And part of that, I think, is because it's real media for real people, right? It's proof of life. It's there. You can see it in person. And there's many, many ways to skin that. There's many ways to do it, and we had so many examples in the last couple of days that were fantastic. Adore Me, Aura, ACA, WISP, Yesway, Scott's, I probably forgot one. But we all learned that mix of pure programmatic digital out of home, plus digital out of home, plus printed and static traditional out of home, plus artists on a stage performing. I love that. His media mix is his list of artists for the next show. It just shows you how these moments are human. We believe these kind of moments. We're all in this room together. We know it happened. This is nothing to do with deep doubt. We don't doubt any of this, at least not yet. And out of home delivers that same strength. So this example here with Groundworks, you know, I call it find hardworking people and billboards. This is a very humbled example, not nearly as sophisticated maybe as some of the others we saw, but very relevant and I think very important and a nice way to button the 3 days we've been together. So what am I talking about here? when you look at out-of-home planning, there's a tendency, especially if you're new to it, to want to call it a zero-sum game, or think that formats do the same thing in every market, or my plan is bulletins and shelters, and I'm just going to run that across the country, or want to come up with the perfect mix of like, how much programmatic do I do, and how much out-of-home traditional do I do, and how do I make that all work together, and like, what's my formula? And what we're saying at our agency is that there isn't one, and there's tactical power in that mix of traditional and programmatic digital out-of-home. And that's really what we seek to find, is like, how do you put those two together? That's where the strength is. One serves the other quite well. People ask me all the time, well, are all printed billboards going to go away and it'll be all digital? Of course that's what's going to happen. I think not, because they both need each other in a big way. So let's talk for a little bit about just who Groundworks is, because probably, how many people of you have heard of Groundworks? Couple, right? I hadn't heard of it up until a couple of years ago. Fine, hardworking people. They repair foundations in homes. This is very basic, very universal. It's this kind of stuff. The foundation breaks, you need to repair it. Unless you've been down into the basement of your house and looked around at the foundation, you probably haven't ever thought about it. Now with extreme weather, we think about it a lot more. But it's this kind of work, blue-collar work, basic, straightforward work, these guys doing this kind of stuff. So our challenge was, how do we bring this forward? Groundworks is a company that franchises what they do all over the country, where local contractors become a Groundworks franchisee, and then they bring these solutions to the public. And so we started coming forward looking at the out-of-home campaign, and this is where it ended up, but I'll talk to you a little bit about the progression. It started out as straight up bulletins, zip codes, right? Here's the trade area. Let's put some bulletins in the market. Let's have an evergreen presence. Everyone knows we're here. The messaging was very simple. Get a free inspection. ABC 1, 2, 3. Very straightforward. We've seen it thousands and thousands of times. Not flashy from a creative point of view, but we know this is going to work. What my ad theory instructor at San Francisco State used to call a fine, hard-working advertisement. And that is the core of our business, really. Now, over time, we realized, hey, there's some digital bulletins in the market that would really make sense. You don't need to be 100% dedicated to only printed out of home. So let's add some of those. And oh, by the way, maybe we can come in and buy programmatically if there's moments we need to pulse, if there's something happening dynamically in the market, if we need to get some impressions to add to the weight. If this is a new area and we don't have a lot of budget, and maybe we can get some impressions there and just get things going. So we ended up with this mix that you see on the screen, 60, 10, 30. Now, we're not saying this is how it should be for every printed digital, programmatic digital campaign, but it's what works here so far. Again, very straightforward, very traditional in nature, 30 markets, targeting zip codes, targeting audience. We used Accretive to help us measure it, because one of their marketing consultants told us if it can't measure it, it didn't happen. It's like, all right, let's measure it and let's find out. So we measured some sample markets. This is what the campaign looked like. Very straight up out of home, 3 or 4 elements, high contrast. The promise is the biggest component, waterproof basements, a mention to the local market. In this case in Ohio, Ohio Basement Authority was the local contractor that was under the Groundwork franchisee agreement. Get a free inspection. Under the Groundworks name in Calgary. In Wichita, you can see they also added the local college sports team, the Wichita State Shockers. Big freeway units. And then also targeting commercial and industrial areas as well that made sense. So straightforward out-of-home campaign. And then we started adding the digital. This is that 10% layer. Some different headlines, depending on the markets, depending on some of the specific messaging that they thought would make sense. We added more bulletins programmatically, sometimes just trying to get high reach impressions. And then at the end, a very straightforward outcome. 150% plus lift on website visitation, which led to inquiries and free inspections, which is how the conversation starts. 150% plus lift on recall and brand studies. So this validated the approach, which we will then continue to build on. And you can see the notes here. Their investment in out-of-home has grown and doubled as their market presence has grown. And along the way, they're able to optimize. So this is very fundamental stuff, very simple to digest on a Saturday morning. But what I'm walking away from today, and for the last 3 days, is not just the fact that we're all finding our way, right? We all believe that it matters to do this well. I want to leave you with the idea that we're not doing it just well for us and for our careers and for our brands, but if we get it right for the public, then what we do will really soar. You know, the public ultimately is going to decide. If we don't make digital out-of-home media relevant to them, they'll stop looking at it. They don't have to look at it. We need to earn the right to occupy their space. We need to deliver value while we're out there. And when they do, they'll look at the screens in a positive way. And that coupled with everything else going on with digital out-of-home, where we're adding public wayfinding messages, public art, things like that, it's becoming truly the visual voice of culture and commerce. And that makes us powerful and relevant going forward. And I think I want to end where I started and thank Brandon, because an artist on the stage performing in front of thousands of people is also out of home, is also the visual voice of culture and commerce. So thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Rick. Any questions, Rick? Yeah.
That programmatic layer that you're putting in there, is that to expand that message with new venues, or are you primarily using that to retarget on mobile or later on other media?
It was really to build on the foundational out-of-home campaign, and it was added in for a variety of reasons, sometimes to expand impressions and reach and things like that, sometimes to respond to whatever was happening in the market, so a dynamic moment, sometimes to go into an area where maybe there wasn't the budget to be there evergreen, but we wanted to be there at least for a minute. So it was a variety of purposes. I think the key was it allowed us to have a flexible component. But that flexible component, and this is the important thing, doesn't work by itself. It's got to stand on top of the foundational investment. I think words are so powerful. And with out of home, especially in this situation, it's important for a brand to look at it as an investment, right? As like a citizen, investor, versus a tourist and a consumer. Because if you're invested in it, you're creating equity over time.
Rick Robinson, as always, thank you so much.
We have one more question.
Oh, we do? I'm sorry. Hang on.
Amanda Deskin with Vistar. So when working with franchisees, it can be very challenging to explain to them programmatic. So do you have any tips for like how y'all went about that? Because I can imagine when you think about a franchisee foundation owner, they don't know much about programmatic advertising.
Well, we had the great benefit of working with an outstanding agency partner called Net Conversion. And how they explained it, I'm not exactly sure. But our head of new business, Jeff Aldrich, is his account. He might be able to explain it. Put you on the spot there, Jeff.
A lot of times it's just the agency working directly with Groundworks, particularly, and the franchisees, and getting them all aligned in one vision for the marketing campaign. It does get a little dicey at times. There's changes that are constantly happening, on the programmatic end, whether it's, pausing a campaign, starting it again, because funds got shifted a little bit with those budgets. But it is kind of a constant battle. But I think that's why we love the flexibility of programmatic, right? For those specific reasons. And Orland, just to answer your question as well too. We do pass back the mobile device IDs for retargeting with them on a monthly basis.
Thank you. Hey, Rick. Bobby Aguilera from TerraBoost. Asked you this from some of your other presentations too, and I don't know if maybe you left some details out, but did any of the programmatic or anything in there also include non-traditional out-of-home media and maybe didn't make the photo?
Not in this particular campaign. I mean, we do a lot of it, and we like the layering of non-traditional. I think it creates that touch point and also some surprise. You know, the key message I wanted to convey this morning is that they all have to work together, and that's really where the power is, and there isn't just one way to do it. Anything else? Thank you again.
Rick, thanks.